Hello, everyone, and welcome to Manomet's Small Seed webinar series. Today, we're here to talk about using high-tech drones in shorebird survey in the Caribbean. My name is Andrea Ferreira. I'll be your host today. Before we begin, I have some quick housekeeping notes. First of all, as you noticed, this session is being recorded, so we can later upload to Manomet's YouTube channel, and you can find the video there, share with your friends or anyone who was not able to join us live today. Secondly, remember that we have a Q&A box here in the Zoom menu, so please type in all of your questions. We have very great experts with us here today, so just put your questions there so we can leave some time at the end. We will have this session for around 30 minutes and then answer all of your questions right there. So do that, please, for us. I'll keep track of any questions in the chat, but remember there's a Q&A box. Lastly, we will all love to know where you're zooming in from today. So if you can please jump in the chat and let us know where you're watching us from. I'll begin. I'm based in Paraguay, which is my home country at the heart of South America. Today with me, I'll be joined by Arne Lesterhuis and Simon Spriensma. They are both from the Netherlands, but Arne lives here in the same country as I do, and they go work together in the Caribbean as part of what this exciting part that they'll share with us. So I see we have people from the Bahamas, interesting, Colombia, Seattle, Delaware, Brazil, Anchorage, Massachusetts. Wow, this is getting exciting. More people from the Netherlands. So as you see, working with shorebirds, we need to be fairly international as they are, flying across Flyway. So here we are today. Going back to our presenters, we have Arne Lesterhuis. He's Manomet's Senior Shorebird Conservation Specialist. He has over 25 years of experience working in bird conservation. He studied wildlife management in the Netherlands, and then a few years after that moved to Paraguay to start working in bird conservation. Then we have Simon Spriensma. He's a professional pilot, drone pilot, and he's specialized in nature and wildlife conservation. And he has over 25 years of experience, if I'm not wrong, working in meadow bird conservation and over 10 years as a professional pilot, working on a wide range of conservation projects. So Arne, if you could move to the next slide, as we can begin the conversation soon. I see people from California, Boston, Canada, more people from Colombia, so this is very exciting. So without making this any longer, the screen is yours. Arne and Simon, welcome, and please enlighten us all with the amazing work you're doing in the Caribbean. Look at Arne with that background.
Yeah, that's actually a photo I took myself. I can still not really believe it, but I mean, it's almost a screensaver. Anyway, thank you, Andrea, for this introduction, and welcome everybody. Welcome everybody for tuning in and listen to our presentation. And well, actually, both Simon and I are very excited to share this information, share this work that we have been doing. Well, we did it last year, I think, yeah, towards the end of last year, and the results were very positive. So we were pretty anxious to share this with a wider public also. And thanks to support from a donor from the Netherlands, Dynamo Funds, we were able to do this pilot. And mostly also because this donor has a specific interest also in using these kind of new techniques for field work. So I will first start with laying a little bit the background, setting a little bit the stage, and then Simon will actually go in the really exciting stuff and sharing all the interesting results that we got from using high-tech drones in the Caribbean. So let me see if I get to the next one. Yeah, so just to set a little bit the stage to talk about how we got to the Caribbean. We started a couple of years ago with surveys on Bonaire and Curaçao. The main objective or the goal was at the time to identify key sites, understand the use of critical habitats, but also to build capacity to make sure that there is continuity. If we start monitoring sites and also get more people involved, so that we could get more data over a longer period of time. And the protocol that we established, that we used, was the International Shorebird Survey. And for those that are not familiar with this survey, the International Shorebird Survey is a monitoring program established in the 70s by Manomet's Brian Harrington. And it's a monitoring program that is still going strong and it's still expanding also. Its main focus is on monitoring sites during migration to get an idea of how important stopover sites are and also get more information on the timing of migration. And if you want to know how important stopover sites are, then turnover data is really important. So you have to go a couple of times during migration to a site. Could be about every 10 days to get an idea of like how are shorebirds using it and how are birds going flying through. The work we did with our partner, local partner on Bonaire, Wild Conscience. And in the beginning, what we did with them is just focusing on any potential site that could be maybe important to shorebirds, looking at eBird data and also based on local experts that have data of shorebirds at some sites or any sites. And then after, well, let's say in the second year, we narrowed it down. We focused on potential key sites, on sites that showed more diversity and more abundance. And in Bonaire, there were 10 sites that we focused on, and then in Curaçao, there were a total of 9 sites that we defined as being important and potentially having a more specific importance to shorebirds specifically. So why the Caribbean? Well, in the first place, the Caribbean are a very important area along the Atlantic Flyway. It's more or less on the middle between the two hemispheres. It's basically a refueling station for shorebirds, and it's an area that's frequented by numerous species, by an abundance of species, 25 plus species that migrate through there, and it really connects these two hemispheres, the Caribbean. So you got species that fly all the way from northern Canada down to Patagonia, and they will use or depend maybe in some cases on the Caribbean to refuel and use shorebird habitat. But it's not just for refueling, because what we have discovered, what tracking studies have shown is quite interesting. And I have an example here for that. But based on tracking study, it appears that migrating shorebirds use the Caribbean and use Caribbean habitats as a sort of safe haven. As an example, like about a decade ago, I think in August 2011, there was this Hudsonian wormrole that was tracked, which was happily migrating south, probably heading to Suriname or to Guyana or maybe even northern Brazil. But it came face to face with an incoming tornado, an incoming hurricane, and instead of just pulling through and just trying to get through it, it actually moved backwards a little bit and it went to the Bahamas and waited for the storm to pass by and then continue its journey and actually survive and get to its destination. If it wouldn't have done that, then it most likely would have died. So these habitats on the Caribbean appear to be really important for shorebirds, not just for the refueling part, but also to be able to refuge from any storms or hurricanes or any other type of weather that can impede their trip further south. So it is very important then these habitats, but there is also a lot of competition, and specifically a lot of competition in the Caribbean with us people. We also love the Caribbean. We love the habitats. We love the blue turquoise water, but we also love comfort. So instead of just lying on the beach, we also want to have a building around it. So we build resorts and we occupy a lot of land. And as you can see on this picture, that means that natural habitats are being replaced by gray infrastructure. And you can see that doesn't leave a lot of space for shorebirds. So the image on top with this nice mangrove area, which is a key habitat for shorebirds in the Caribbean, it vanishes quickly, and species like the shorebird dowitcher and the Hudsonian whimbrel and semi-palmated sandpiper really suffer. And over the past couple of decades, these birds have all shown very significant declines. And if we don't do something about it, if we don't protect areas, well, their declines will only get worse. And they might eventually face extinction, of course. So conservation of critical sites is really important. Currently, there are 3 Caribbean wisdom sites, which is not a lot, but then again, it's still there are 3 already, which is good. It's a good start. We have Camp K to Pigeon Cay on the Bahamas, Cabo Rojo salt flats in Puerto Rico, and on Bonaire we have the Cargill salt ponds. And the Cargill salt ponds on Bonaire is a site of regional importance, and it's part of the network since 2018. And it was submitted at the time based on important research and monitoring by Birds Caribbean, and on the basis of having more than 20,000 birds on an annual basis. This is not, it doesn't mean that there are 20,000 birds on one day there, but during migration, and then considering the turnover, there are at least 20,000 birds using the area at these salt ponds every year, including 1% of the biogeographic population of the short-billed dowitcher and also of the rufous red knot. Although it's not a natural habitat, it's a salt production area. The area is maintained, is managed so that also shorebirds can use it freely and without being harmed in any way. So, but there are more sites out there. We know that there are quite a number of potential sites in the Caribbean, but we need more data. A lot of these sites here on the map are based on either irregular counts or has some high counts on eBird, but not regular counts that actually gives us a good idea of what sites are actually the most important to protect now. So it's hard to prioritize. But with regular surveys and getting more data, we will be able to get a better idea of what's important and what sites are important to protect first. And for that, of course, we need volunteers as well. And over the past couple of years, there has been an increasing focus on building capacity in the Caribbean. Birds Caribbean specifically has done a lot of work in that area to make sure that more data is getting in, and often we collaborate with them to increase the number of volunteers we have in this area to get that more data. Well, and then we get to the drone service, the more interesting part probably of this whole presentation, and specifically maybe besides having a whole network of volunteers, there is also an opportunity that drones can help us out to get better coverage or maybe get better accessibility to some sites. I mean, if you see of this picture, this mangrove area here, there might be a very important roost site behind it that we just don't really get access to. But if you are able to get there and get an idea of how many birds are in there, because we know that dowitchers, for example, use these kind of mangroves, these ponds that are hidden between the mangroves. If we can get there in a way that doesn't scare the birds but gives us the information on how many birds there are, then that might be very useful. And it might also be very cost and time efficient. Cryptic species also. There are birds out there that maybe are overlooked a lot that we don't really get access to. And so with just a scope in a marsh area, maybe we do not see everything that's actually there. And last but not least, maybe drones can also help us monitoring habitat change. Doing surveys of habitat, of quality of habitat every year could give us an idea of how these things change. But I will leave it to Simon to get a little bit deeper into that and show us the results that what we got in this pilot. And yeah, I mean, give it away, Simon.
Yeah, thank you, Arne. Thank you, Andrea, for having me here in the webinar. Well, first of all, a little bit about my background, then we go through to our pilot. And well, I started my volunteer career with meadowbirds from my childhood days. I was always in the field looking for nests of meadowbirds, black-tailed godwit, redshank, Eurasian oystercatcher, and of course northern lapwings here in the Netherlands. To protect the nest and protect the chicks as well. And since 2017, 2018, the thermal drone, well, they come in they were there in the market, and we had a small pilot here in the northern part of the Netherlands with these drones, and I was there, and I was so enthusiastic about that drone, and eventually I became a volunteer drone pilot, and it helped us enormously in finding nests, finding chicks, but also finding calves of deer, etc., etc. And so in nature conservation here in the northern part of the Netherlands, it became a huge success. And I used to work for a bank, and eventually decided to quit my job at the bank and to create my own company with drones and AI, and do some project management at the intersection of agriculture and nature. And yeah, it was really interesting to see what is going on in the Caribbean and to see how drones can help there in nature conservation. And maybe you can put the next slide, Arne, because if we look at that history of drones, so I started with the whole drone thing in 2017, and it's just amazing to see what is happening, what happened last decade of drone history. If you see in the left side, it was our first drone where we tried to find nests with all loose components. There's a camera on the back, there's another camera underneath, and now in 2026 we use the DJI Matrice 4T, the 4 thermal, and everything is inside that small gimbal, we call it. There are 4 cameras, there's a rangefinder, there is a night mode inside. It's unbelievable in 9-10 years time how that development, the technical development went, well, more or less through the roof. The flight time increased at times 5, from 7 minutes in 2017 to up to 35, up to 40 minutes now. And so better technique and even better prices. The left one was about, I think it was about $30,000, and now, well, more or less $10,000, you have that beautiful new engine. And yeah, the results improved a lot as well. We went from an analog to digital technology. So what you see on the screen is so incredibly bright, and the newest drone you can zoom 112 times. So if you have that bird in the center of your screen and you push one button, well, you can count the feathers almost. So that's really amazing. But we have some examples in the next slides. So Arne, if you can continue. Thank you. That thermal drones, we use it not only for monitoring, we use it a lot for nest protection. On the right side of the screen, you see the nest of the American golden plover. I was with a research team in Alaska for 2 months as well, where we looked for the red knot. And of course, there are a lot of golden plovers as well. And you can actually see the air cells in the air. How do you call this? The air thing in the egg, on the egg as well. So we use it for nest protection. Really easy. In the early morning, you go with the drone. Everything, the whole earth is cold except for the bird or except for the nest with the eggs inside. We use it for monitoring, so mammals, birds, everything. And we use it for capturing and banding as well. So you fly over a family, you see exactly how many chicks are left in the family, and you can collect all the chicks, band them, and release them again. So less stress, more efficient, and better results. Next slide, please. So what we did at Curaçao, in the island of Curaçao, first of all, the team on the ground, the birders, the local birders know the hotspots. We already had some data of the last couple of years. where they collected all the data. And we worked really in close cooperation with the government of Curaçao, so that helped us a lot. We've been really busy with the permits. We wanted to fly in the really early mornings, so during nighttime. And of course, you have to be aware of all the no-flying zones around the national parks, around the airport, and of course, weather conditions were so different compared to the Netherlands. It's the tropics, so we were really before the pilot, I was really anxious about what we are going to see on the thermal screen. What is the thermal drone going collect by data? Next screen, please. But yeah, one of the first mornings, Arne and I were out really early, and if you see on the left side, that's the thermal screen. That's where every hotspot, every white hotspot, is a bird or is a mammal. And this was, I think it was the second morning actually, and we saw this light bulb jumping around the beach, and then we switched to the other camera, the RGB camera, the red, green, and blue camera, and then that semi-palmated plover lighted up. We used the spotlight here as well. The spotlight, you can increase it's on top of the drone, and you can increase the light. And so first you look for birds with the thermal camera, then you switch to the RGB camera, and then all of a sudden that semi-palmated plover showed up. And then we really know, thermal droning is going to help monitoring in the Caribbean. Next slide, please. I hope, So over here you see some, it's a bit chucky. It's not really going smooth, but it says a lot about disturbance. Like I think I'm flying here at an altitude of 55 up to 60 meters, and the birds keep on foraging, and so there's a lot to do about disturbance with drones and nature conservation. But we are really, of course, we are nature lovers as well and bird lovers, but there's actually no disturbance. The birds keep on foraging, they do the thing, and we can count. You can easily see, that's the semi-palmated plover, that's this, that's that. So it's the birds are not distracted at all. Next slide, please. Well, and one of the interesting birds, the Wilson snipe, it's a little bit hiding and things like that. On the left side, so you see the thermal image, and you see that small white spot in the middle. Then you switch to the other camera, and then you use the zoom. So, like I said before, times 112, and then you see, more or less, it is just a screenshot from a film. So it's not really clear, but if you see it on your remote control, it's really clear, and you can count them easily. Next slide, please. So, and it's also like we've been at Curaçao for 1.5 weeks, and eventually you see already in the thermal image what kind of bird it is. This is the southern lapwing, beautiful bird, one of my favorites, and it's really a long, and it's high on its feet, and so you see it in the thermal image as well. It's really long and stretchy, actually. Well, we took this. We found this one at 85 meters in range, 60 meters height. The bird was foraging and just doing its thing. You have the gimbal down -30 up to 35 degrees, and you just slowly move that there over the shoreline and see every bird. Switch to the RGB side to determine what kind of bird it is, and that is actually how it works. Next one, Arne. Well, not only shorebirds were there, other migrating birds were there as well. This is a bobolink, a really small bird. I think it's up to 6 inches, 1.5 ounce. So, and you see just a small, tiny light bulb there in the tree sitting at the left side of the screen. and then you switch to the RGB, and it's beautiful sitting there. And so, yeah, you can use it for every kind of bird, and even the smallest birds we detected at Curaçao. Well, what else did we do? I brought another drone with me as well. It's a mapping drone. It's called. It's the Mavic 3 Enterprise. What you actually do, you take about 400 up to 500 photos just with a gimbal down minus 90 degrees, and then you use software to stitch it all together, so you get a really highly detailed 2D map of the habitat and its surroundings. Well, you can use it as a baseline measurement. So this year we want to go back, do the same thing, and see how these surroundings changed, how the habitat changed. And over time, you observe changes, both negative and positive. And yeah, this is a really interesting site. It's pretty small, actually. And you see already the urbanization in the southwestern part of the map. But it was one of the best habitats we've seen, one of the best areas we monitored. There were hundreds and hundreds of shorebirds there. A lot of Wilson snipe, actually. We had about 80 of them. So this is so important to also monitor these small sites. They are so important in that migration from north to south. Next slide, please. Because what we also had in mind, of course we had the data of the local birders, and they highlighted this as a hotspot as well. But when we came up to this beach, well, it looked really nice in the beginning, but then we ended up at the beach itself. It was all trashy, and you can see the colors of the water. It's a little bit odd. So you can use it. There was just a lot of rubbish on the beach, and there were no shorebirds left, only a couple of dowitzers and a southern lapwing, and that was more or less it. So if you do this every time, you can use it for the local government as well, for policy and cleaning up beaches, etc. Next one, please. Well, the results, and our conclusions after 1.5 weeks in the Caribbean, those thermal drones, they worked just perfectly. It was unbelievable how they work under tropical conditions. Although it was sometimes 25 up to 30 degrees Celsius, so about 80 up to 85 degrees Fahrenheit. The amount of birds we found with the drone was just amazing. Well, early mornings are by far the best. So the whole night, the environment cools down, and of course the birds and the birds stay more or less the same temperature. So early morning, about 5 a.m., 4 a.m., we were at how do you call it? We were there, and we had really good results. Minimal disturbance. And especially with those newest drones, they have low noise propellers and everything, and that worked really good. And especially for cryptic species like Sora, the Sora is a bird in the rail family, and Wilson snipe numbers increased up to 20 times. It was just unbelievable. Like in this small patch here in the photograph, we had about 80 Wilson snipe there. And otherwise, we wouldn't have monitored it with binoculars or with scopes. So that's really interesting, we think. And so it's perfect for monitoring wetlands like marshlands, coastal lagoons, mangroves, and especially those hard to reach areas where it's really hard without disturbing the birds. It's just a perfect method. Next one, please. Well, and what do we want to do in the future? Well, we want to go towards a more standardized way of flying, so more with a grid or something, so you don't skip any parts of the habitat. And we would love to come back to Curaçao and monitor more areas, different areas, and multiple times. So see what kind of birds come through in the first week and in the third week, etc., etc. And we want to expand the use of monitoring with drones to more people and countries. Next one, please. Well, and some recommendations from our side. Well, of course, do not cause unnecessary disturbance and use of top class drones only. Like when I was in Alaska, I had a really old drone with me. It was in 2022, and the results were not that good. But now we used the newest drone, and it was just amazing. Invest a lot of time in flying, and what you see on the thermal image, what is it? Is it the bird? Is it the mammal? Or is it something else? Just invest hours and hours, and you will get paid back. Yeah, and like what I said before, the last 10 years, the whole drone thing, the technology went through the roof, but it's going to be more and more and more. So the drones are indispensable for monitoring, especially in the near future. Well, of course, be aware of local regulations, talk to the government, well, and check your flight company when your airline or where you go abroad, because there are quite a lot of rules applying when you take batteries with you on a plane or take a drone with you on a plane. So, well, that's more or less it. Andrea.
Yes, I'm back and watching the chat. There's already discussions going in the chat. We have multiple questions. So I think before I like to address one of the questions that is about the use of drones and about disturbance, not disturbance. I'll let you explain better. But as a photographer and someone who owns a drone, not the one that you have, but we can understand that I understand that many national parks or many protected areas are prohibiting use of drones, not because of scientists, because of how many people, like just any random individual, can have easy access to a drone and they're just going for fun. I've experienced it going to a place here in the Chaco to see flamingos, and then a bus tour came. A guy just went in with his huge the phantom, and it scared all the flamingos away for all of us who were like cautiously walking towards the bird. So I understand that protected areas have regulations, usually for this kind of disturbance, that people that are not trained, they are not specialists. And while talking before this conversation, both of you explained, gave me a great tip that was where you guys start the drone and where you made it fly. So I wondered if you can follow up on that a little bit. That you're
Yeah,
not starting the drone on top of the nest or on top of the birds.
now we fly at least, we start at least 150 meters from, well, where the birds are. And so you go up to into the sky about 50, 60 meters, and then you fly really slowly towards, towards the spot where the birds are. But yeah, I fully agree with what's going on. Like we were flying at Curaçao as well, and there was a tourist flying with a really small drone just nearly next to ours. And so rules and regulations should apply anyway, especially in national parks and especially in nature. But for research, it's a really good thing.
Yeah. Then go back to the questions. Where can you learn to fly in such drones? Is there a license required?
Well, I got my license. I think it was 6 years ago. There was not a lot of regulations in Europe, but yeah, you need to do a theory exam, and there's no practical exam needed. Well, there are different degrees in exams and how do you call them
To get a
in
license.
licenses? Yeah, to get a license. But so. Depends on where you are at. In Europe, it's just a theory and two exams by the internet, and that's more or less it.
I can totally see this in the next 5 years being a career, like you can get an actual degree. As of now, I think the license, not every country has these requirements because probably the government is not aware yet. But yes, when I was in the UK to fly my drone, I had to apply for a drone license. Like any people who's not any person who's not a researcher and you want to fly your drone anywhere you're going, you have to make sure if there are regulations, like I said, usually in national parks, drones are not allowed, and then just get your license as a, I don't know what called, like a, I don't know, regular person who's not a drone expert pilot, that you need a license to do that. Next questions. What altitude were you flying when using the thermal camera to pick up the eggs?
Well, picking up X is about 35 up to 40 meters high, and then you fly the camera minus 90. And more, we will always fly automatic pathways so that you don't miss anything. So that's really different compared to monitoring. So with monitoring, just monitoring birds or mammals, you can fly on a higher altitude, but if you want to find nests, then you have to fly lower.
Yes, and also I think it's an important reminder that you mentioned about the camera that has a zoom, because sometimes it's easy to get confused. Like you see the close-up image and you say, oh, they were really close to the bird.
Yeah.
But just want to highlight that you mentioned that earlier. Interesting one. Are there drones with audio capacity? Would it be great to land the drone, turn the rotors off, record sound for 30 minutes or something that will before starting? So do you know anything about this? It's
Well,
maybe send a
I'm not
message to
aware of it,
DJI.
but there's a lot of things going on. Well, I can put a speaker on top of it, so I could talk to the birds, but I'm not aware if you could record anything. But there's a lot of like these are just standard drones. So there are a couple of extra functions like the spotlight and the speaker, etc. You can buy that extra, but there is a lot of things going on. So there must be one with a microphone on top of it.
And like
I
you
mean,
mentioned, if you could put a speaker, maybe you can put a low weight recorder on top and just
I assume you will be able to do that. I mean, also these recording devices they use these days in the field, they get smaller too. So I assume you could quite easily just build one on it.
yes. Um, we have a lot of questions, you guys. This is exciting. How far from base? How close to the habitat does the technician has to be?
Well, officially, I was at on Curaçao. I was only allowed to fly the drone visual, so I have to keep the drone visual inside. Same as in the Netherlands, and in most countries where I've flown a drone, that was the main rule. And well, the drone is only about, I think, 35 centimeters. So 700 up to 750 meters, then that's the maximum range, actually.
Yes, that's a reminder for me that usually when someone apply in a country, the rules are kind of the same. They tell you like the distance, they tell you that you usually need a spotter, someone that's looking at
Yeah.
the drone while you're piloting. So those are part of the rules that you need always keep sight of the drone.
Yeah.
Even though they can fly further away, you
Oh,
always need to.
absolutely. They can fly for 15 kilometers, this one, I think, and in America, even 25, I think. But also the maximum height should be always below 120 meters.
Okay. Next question. Thermal cameras usually have low resolution. What resolution did the thermal camera you used had, and how far away from the birds was its position so you do not frighten them?
Well, the position was about the images I inserted in the presentation were about 80 up to 85 meters range from the birds, and the resolution is 640 by 480, and that's more or less the maximum thermal camera you can get on underneath a standard drone at the moment.
So it's like you explained, you use this thermal to find where they are, and then you can
Yeah.
switch cameras
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
get
the thermal camera doesn't have a really good zoom as well. So you find it with a thermal camera, you find the hotspot, and then you switch to the RGB zoom camera, which can zoom up to 112 times.
right. The next one, which also was a great suggestion you made about the time. It's early morning, a time suggestion for surveys specific due to the thermal images, or generally you just switch her to RGB. So what do you can elaborate on that?
Well, it's the once the sun is up, everything what is black or stones or everything will look more hot, so everything becomes something like a bird or something like so you have to keep in mind thermal imaging is only really possible when the surroundings are colder than the mammal or than the bird. So that's why we decided the first 2 evenings we tried it, but the stones and that coral was still warm. The roots of the mangroves were still warm. So then we decided to switch to the morning, and it's by far the best time.
I think specifically one of the things that we had was that dead coral. I mean, that is impressive how much heat that contains and maintains. I mean, it was, well, in the evening that was the problem, but in the morning it was still an issue where at some point we were just flying over a whole pile of dead coral, and then when we put the RGB camera on it, there were actually birds roosting on that, but we couldn't see that with just the thermal because it was all hot. But then with the other camera on it and the zoom, we saw that our birds were roosting on the dead coral.
I'm trying to follow up for the questions. I think we've already answered some of them. I already asked about RGB, thermal images. There's a whole discussion going in the chat about training, like capacity building in the Caribbean, which was one of the things that you mentioned for the future. I think there's an opportunity here to reach out to brands like DJI and also talk about this, because that's something that someone comment, like there are the restrictions. Even if you get the permission from, I don't know, the protected area, the organization that you're working with, then you can also encounter the restrictions from the drone itself. Like you mentioned, like being close to the airport. There are things where the drone does not let you fly, or other restrictions that may happen. So that can give a good opportunity for any organization working to reach out and see how you can develop protocols and other procedures on how to improve the research. People are already congratulating you guys, how helpful this has been. I don't know if Arne, you would like to add something more about capacity building in the Caribbean. Someone also asked, like, what kind of drones would you recommend to start out? Anything like
I mean,
that?
for sure, and we did when we were there last year. I mean, we did a workshop, and also not just on monitoring, but also on using drones. So Simon also did a sort of a training workshop as like a first step. Had to build some capacity, and also we took people into the field to show how how we use them, or Simon in this case, of course, how he uses the drones. And people are very interested in it, and we hope, to actually build on that, to actually bring more of that, bring more of those capacity building workshops on use of drones to areas where people are interested in it, and also for us. I mean, it's very useful to apparently to use drones for survey work, and there's a lot of opportunity out there. And I just want to stress again that we were very surprised by the fact that birds did not react to us being there with the drones. And again, we took our precautions. We were at a distance, but we were constantly looking at how the birds react. Do they, if they started to move, then we would go back. But most of the time that didn't happen. They were no, I think we had, it was funny. We had one time there was a guy running up to us with his dog, saying, "Hey guys, please be careful with the drone, because the flamingos will fly up and all that." And then the guy took off with his dog unleashed, and the dog flew off all the flamingos. So I'm like, that's just putting it into perspective, how people think about these kind of things. But yeah, I mean, it was funny though.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned about how you can also lose your drone to a hawk or a seagulls, which is also a danger too.
Oh,
While the
yeah.
drone pilot is focusing on the images, I almost
Yeah.
lost my drone from a peregrine falcon 2 years ago. So
Yeah, but also with breeding birds, you always have to be aware. Like we have the Eurasian oyster catcher. He is really keen on drones. Well, he just thinks it's a kite or another bird of prey, and we already lost 3 drones due to two to the oyster catcher and one to the aquachat. So you have to always be aware. But the birds were still alive afterwards, so that's all right.
not your drone, but the bird was okay.
Yeah.
I want to read one last, it's a comment, a good comment on you guys, but it's one last technical questions before we close. I'm wondering if you experimented with or used a standardized transect survey or standardized point counts? Were just manually recording? Like what technique were you using, like piloting the drones?
I mean, this pilot was really to see how it would work. I mean, how birds react to it. Is it possible? Is it possible to identify birds? You know, is it possible to find birds in harder habitat? And the next step would really be, and we hope to do that next year if we can, or that will be this year
This
if
year.
we go back, yeah, to actually build on this experience and work out on standardized monitoring using drones. And I think Simon mentioned a little bit about it, but actually, yeah, doing that in a standardized way so that you can actually count birds, know how many there are, maybe use it for estimating how many birds there are. So that will be really the next step. But I definitely see opportunity to build on what we did now, and that it definitely will work and will for some areas make it easier.
Yes. So I want to thank everyone. I think this was really interesting. The first time we're having like long discussions going on in the chat. As you said, this was a pilot. We're trying, and we always need collaborations to make this happen, like exchanging ideas, exchanging experiences, and that's the purpose of what we do here in the small set. So I want to thank you guys. Arne, if you could show again our last slide, and I'll make you work as my assistant right now. Thank you, Arne. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today in this webinar, the Small Set webinar. We'll meet you again next month. But before we go, I just want to remind you all that Manomet is a non-profit. We're a conservation organization working from Alaska, from the Arctic to the south of our continent in Tierra del Fuego. We're working everywhere we can for shorebird conservation, reversing their decline, promoting coastal resiliency, and empowering the next generation of conservationists. So if you find it in yourself that you can collaborate, make a donation to Manomet, please scan the QR code. If you don't have a phone right now to scan it, you can just go to our website and use one of our donate buttons. So again, thank you everyone for being here today. We'll try to capture your questions that weren't unanswered so we can reach out to you later. So thank you and see you next month. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Arne. Bye, Simon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.